For years, Canada has leaned heavily on the United States for trade. But that's changing fast. With recent trade tensions and new US tariffs making things more unpredictable, Canada is on a mission to branch out. Trade Minister Mary Young's latest trip to Europe made that crystal clear. Canada is actively reducing its reliance on the US by strengthening trade ties with other countries. One of the biggest moves is expanding trade with the European Union through CETA, the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement. Since this deal came into play, trade between Canada and the EU has skyrocketed by over 65%. That's a big win. But Canada isn't stopping there. During her visit, Minister Ng focused on three key areas: critical minerals, energy, and technology exports. These industries are booming, and Canada wants to position itself as a go-to supplier for Europe. But this isn't just about Europe. Canada is also shifting its energy exports to Asia. For decades, the US has bought almost all of Canada's oil, 97% of it, to be exact. But now, Canada is making moves to diversify. New agreements with Japan and China signal a big change, ensuring Canadian energy has a wider range of buyers. Meanwhile, Canada is also strengthening relationships with Indonesia, South Korea, and other Indo-Pacific nations by deepening trade ties through the CPTPP, the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. Canada is securing access to some of the fastest-growing economies in the world. This isn't just about avoiding potential US trade restrictions, it's about long-term economic resilience. Mary Young's trip to Brussels wasn't just a routine diplomatic visit, it was a sign of Canada's larger strategy. The goal is clear: build stronger trade alliances and reduce dependence on any one country. And while CETA has already been a success, there's still plenty of untapped potential. For example, a significant portion of Canadian exports to the EU aren't even using the preferential treatment offered under CETA. In 2020, only 57% of eligible exports took advantage of the deal's benefits. That means many businesses are leaving money on the table simply because they're not fully aware of how to leverage the agreement. Nang is pushing to change that. She's making it a priority to help Canadian businesses, especially small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, navigate international trade. Since SMEs make up 98% of Canadian businesses, making it easier for them to expand into global markets is a game changer. To help with that, Canada launched the Can Export SMEs program, which provides financial support of up to $75,000 for businesses looking to explore international markets. Since its launch in 2016, the program has helped thousands of companies break into new markets, but it became even more critical during the COVID-19 pandemic. Recognizing that businesses needed new ways to connect globally, the program adapted. It covered costs for setting up online stores, hiring digital marketing experts, and even attending virtual trade shows. It also helped businesses meet new international regulations and obtain market certifications. In short, it gave Canadian businesses the tools they needed to compete on a global scale. Canada is shaking things up when it comes to trade. For years, it relied heavily on the US as its main economic partner, but now things are changing. With new trade deals, expanded partnerships, and a big push to break down barriers, Canada is making sure its economy isn't tied to just one country. At the heart of this shift is CETA, the trade agreement between Canada and the European Union. It's been in place for a while, but Canada and the EU are fine-tuning the details to make it easier for small and medium-sized businesses, SMEs, to navigate trade disputes. Why? Because SMEs are the backbone of the economy, and making trade fairer and smoother for them means more jobs, more investment, and stronger international connections. But Canada's trade ambitions don't stop at goods and services. There's also a major push to recognise professional qualifications between Canada and the EU. Architects, for example, will soon have an easier time working across borders without jumping through endless bureaucratic hoops. This is great news for professionals looking to expand their careers internationally. And then there's the big ticket item, critical minerals. These are the materials that power everything from electric vehicles to wind turbines. Canada and the EU have been strengthening their cooperation to make sure they have secure, reliable supplies of these essential resources. It's a strategic move, one that helps both sides avoid depending on countries that might not share their values back. In 2021, Canada and the EU set up a partnership focused on raw materials. They've been working on better ways to mine, refine and recycle these minerals while keeping environmental and ethical standards high. Canada is particularly focused on ensuring that its mining industry doesn't just extract resources, but does so in a way that respects Indigenous rights, protects the environment, and boosts local economies. To back this up, Canada rolled out its critical mineral strategy backed by nearly $4 billion in funding. The goal is to become a global leader in responsibly sourced minerals. That means using greener mining techniques, investing in recycling technology, and making sure Indigenous communities benefit from mining projects happening on or near their lands. This shift isn't just about supply chains. It's about positioning Canada as a key player in the global transition to clean energy. With demand for electric vehicle batteries, solar panels, and high-tech manufacturing materials soaring, Canada is making sure it has a seat at the table. But Canada isn't just looking to Europe. Trade Minister Mary Young's recent visit to Brussels highlighted Canada's broader strategy, diversifying exports, building stronger international partnerships, and reducing economic reliance on the US. That's why Canada is also expanding trade with Southeast Asia, working closely with countries like Indonesia and Ecuador, and pushing for more trade agreements outside of North America. At the same time, there's been a growing focus on fixing trade issues at home. Believe it or not, Canada has plenty of internal trade barriers that make it hard for businesses to operate smoothly across provinces. Transport Minister Anita Anand has been leading discussions to break down these barriers, making it easier for goods, services, and workers to move freely within the country. Why the sudden urgency? Well, things took an unexpected turn in late 2024. During a private dinner at Mar-a-Lago, US President-elect Donald Trump made an unusual suggestion to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He floated the idea of Canada becoming the 51st US state. At first, it seemed like an offhand comment met with some awkward laughter, but then Trump doubled down. On December 10th, 2024, he posted on Truth Social, calling Trudeau Governor Justin Trudeau of the great state of Canada. By December 18th, he was claiming, without evidence, that many Canadians were actually in favour of the idea. In early 2025, tensions between Canada and the United States took an unexpected turn. Former US President Donald Trump, back in the political spotlight, ramped up his rhetoric against Canada, accusing it of failing to secure the shared border. But instead of focusing solely on border policies, he went much further, proposing a 25% tariff on all Canadian imports unless Canada made changes. Then came an even bolder claim. Trump insisted that the US was practically subsidizing Canada, throwing out an unverified number, $300 billion, and suggesting a solution. If the US was going to financially support its northern neighbor, why not make Canada the 51st state? Naturally, this didn't sit well with Canadians. On January 7, 2025, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau didn't mince words. There isn't a snowball's chance in hell that Canada would become part of the United States, he declared. But Trump wasn't backing down. On Christmas Day, 2024, he took to Truth Social, promising Canadians that if they joined the US, taxes would drop by 60%, businesses would double in size, and they would gain full military protection. A month later, he pushed the idea even further. During a press conference on January 7th, he ruled out military action, but made it clear that he intended to use economic pressure to get his way. Shortly after, he posted an image of the US flag covering Canada, captioning it with a reference to Canada's national anthem. Then, on February 1st, he followed through on his earlier threat, announcing that 25% tariffs on all Canadian goods would take effect on February 4th. The next day, he reiterated his annexation stance, claiming that Canada could avoid tariffs and gain privileged security status if it simply agreed to become a US state. Canada wasted no time responding. Just one day later, the Trudeau government struck back with its own 25% tariffs on $155 billion worth of American imports. But beyond the immediate trade battle, something much bigger was at play. While Trump's remarks sparked outrage and debate, his aggressive stance toward Canada wasn't just about border security or trade disputes. At its core, this was about resources. The United States has long depended on Canada's vast supply of raw materials, but with shifting global markets and evolving energy strategies, that dependence has only grown. One of the biggest factors is oil. Canada ranks among the world's top crude oil producers, pumping out 4.6 million barrels per day as of 2023. Nearly 97% of those exports go straight to the US, making Canadian oil a critical part of America's energy system. Alberta's oil sands lead the charge, and US refineries, especially in the Midwest and Gulf Coast, are heavily reliant on this steady supply. In 2023 alone, crude oil exports generated $124 billion for Canada's economy. Beyond oil, natural gas is another key piece of the puzzle. Canada, the world's fifth largest producer, extracts 17.9 billion cubic feet daily, most of which flow south through an extensive pipeline network. These exports were valued at $113 billion in 2023, further cementing Canada's role as a primary energy supplier for the US. But energy isn't the only thing on the table. Canada is also one of the world's most important sources of critical minerals needed for modern technology. Nickel, for example, is a major component of electric vehicle batteries. In 2023, Canada produced nearly 59,000 tons, with about half of it going to the US, while other buyers included China, the Netherlands, and Japan. Aluminum is another key resource. Canada ranked as the fourth largest producer in 2022, with an output of 3 million metric tons. The industry valued at $16.5 billion in 2024. It benefits from Canada's heavy reliance on hydroelectric power, making its production far cleaner than most global competitors. Gold is just as valuable. In 2022, Canada mined over 205 tons, ranking fifth worldwide, with most of it exported to the UK, Switzerland, and the US. Uranium, another crucial resource, is equally significant. With some of the richest uranium deposits in the world, Canada produced over 7,300 tons in 2022, supplying 15% of the global market. The US, Germany, and the UK are among the biggest buyers as nuclear power gains renewed attention as a clean energy source. And it doesn't stop there. Canada's hydroelectric power capacity is among the largest globally, ranking third overall in 2022. It exported more than 50 terawatt-hours of hydroelectricity to the US, generating nearly $6 billion in revenue. This clean and renewable energy source has become increasingly valuable as the world moves away from fossil fuels. Forestry is another major economic pillar, covering a staggering 280 million hectares of Canadian land. In 2022, the industry contributed over $33 billion to Canada's economy, with exports totaling $45.6 billion, most of which went straight to the US. Softwood lumber has long been a source of trade disputes between the two nations, but it remains a key export alongside pulp, paper, and newsprint. Potash, a crucial ingredient in fertilizer, is another Canadian asset that plays a role in the global food supply chain. Canada happens to be the world's largest producer, extracting 13 million metric tons in 2023, valued at $16.8 billion. With food security becoming an increasingly pressing issue worldwide, potash is more valuable than ever. Even diamonds are part of the equation. Canada's Northwest Territories produced 16.2 million carats in 2023, generating $1.7 billion in exports, with the US and Belgium among the biggest buyers. With so much wealth in natural resources, Trump's aggressive economic stance toward Canada wasn't entirely unexpected. His administration framed it as a way to strengthen US security and economic stability, claiming that closer integration, if not outright annexation, would ensure steady access to these vital materials. But Canada wasn't buying it. While Trump's bold claims may have played well with certain audiences, the reality is that Canada has built its economy on its own terms. The country remains deeply intertwined with the US through trade, but that doesn't mean it's willing to surrender control over its resources. As tensions between the two countries continue to escalate, both governments are looking for ways to protect their economic interests. For Canada, that means doubling down on diversification, forging new trade,